Well, if you're an avid watcher of our show, you know that each week we like to break down stories from the three levels of government with our friend and CTV political commentator, Scott Reid. He's joining us live this morning. Scott, good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, Scott, lots happening here. Let's start federally, though. We got trains, planes, cargo ships. The Trudeau government, of course, circumvented a rail strike this summer, but a port strike's now underway. We've also got Air Canada pilots giving some people a bit of reason to sweat. There's a lot of labor stuff happening.
And in the U.S., up and down
all
the eastern seaboard, all that. So don't you love the word stevedore? Let's just say stevedore as many times as possible. So the stevedores, 450 stevedores are on strike. Stevedores are not working. Oh, God, I love that word.
Yeah, it's a good word.
But this is a real challenge. So it's been happening here for 2 days now, could go on. Federal government's reluctant to sort of wade in and play peacemaker in it or, judge, jury, and executioner. Then we've got all the eastern seaboard. We could have the eastern seaboard strike start today and end before the one in the Port of Montreal ends. And watch the Air Canada pilots vote today. It's been a rocky road to get to that settlement, 42% increase, but... and this is a hint that maybe the pilots aren't happy with it with rank and file. The union head said if it's not accepted by the membership, she will quit. So keep your eye on that. Could be a lot of trouble ahead for the Trudeau government when it comes to labor relations.
Okay, a big one to watch for. Meantime, provincially, we heard this from Premier Doug Ford last week announcing, hey, this is my idea. I want to build a tunnel underneath the 401 to help ease congestion. But a lot of people are saying, you know what, there are other options, and this thing could cost a whopping $30 to $60 billion.
A tunnel under the 401. Why not a moon to Mars? Why not an elevator to the moon or Mars? Predictably, this came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden, the premier just blurts out. And now, of course, you've got experts saying, well, I mean, sure, okay, whatever, do a feasibility study. But at minimum, and it's probably at minimum, I mean, imagine if Metrolinx was in charge of it, right? Like, there'll be flying cars before the tunnel exists. And they say at minimum it costs like $60 billion. And that is, just to put it in perspective, over the course of the next 10 years, the next decade in Ontario, for every highway, all public transit projects, everything, the budget is $100 billion. So you're talking about taking 60% of that to build a tunnel under the 401. It's Jetsons, kooky, who knows what's going on. So we'll see what happens with this, but I wouldn't hold your breath that this project
So why
is
did he do it?
unfold.
Why did he come out and say that then?
I wonder if it's one of the, sometimes, like when you work for a premier or a prime minister, sometimes as a staffer, you got to be really careful. I'm not saying this is what happened, but here's a suspicion. Sometimes if you say something to your boss just before they go into the microphone, they'll blurt it out. So like, don't say hamburger, right? Because then they might go and say hamburger. Don't say build a tunnel under the 401 because you're like, yeah, I just read that idea. It sounds cool. I think I'll throw it out. I have a feeling that this came up in briefings. It was an option. He's like, that sounds cool. Why don't we talk about that? And it blurts out without conditioning, without context. And it's kind of attract a lot of ridicule.
It has. Okay, so let's move on from that and see where the feasibility study, I suppose, goes. In the meantime, though, really interesting situation municipally unfolding, and we generally give this municipal a bit short shrift in this segment. This is key. So the executive committee is meeting today, considering a staff report that would allow Billy Bishop to essentially expand its runway to meet federal codes and to continue operations. We know the mayor isn't necessarily in support of Billy Bishop. What could happen here? Because she has a bit of an opportunity to kind of determine the fate of Billy Bishop.
Yeah, watch this. I think this is a story that's only going to grow larger. A lot of people are probably rolling their eyes and going to get coffee because they're like, I've heard this debate about the Billy Bishop Airport for years and years and years. But understand this, Olivia Chow, she's been able to sort of disappoint her base without political repercussion since she became mayor. You know, she didn't really fight for Ontario Place. They uploaded the highways and she traded that off. But understand, New Democrats in downtown Toronto hate the Billy Bishop Airport the way bears hate hornets, and they are coming for it. And she's now got a staff report, a city staff report that says, yeah, let's chintz the ports. They want to have a new lease extension. They're not going to give it to them. They must expand the runway to conform with federal and international safety regulations. But can they finance that without the longer lease? So what I think you're really seeing happening is this is a side doorway for Chow to really make it difficult, place every possible hurdle in front of the Billy Bishop Airport, make it extraordinarily difficult for it to continue on. And, you know, I'm not going to say that the mayor is going to use every tool and resource available to her to shut down Billy Bishop Airport, but I'm saying the mayor is going to use every tool and resource available to her to shut down Billy Bishop Airport.
But that is pretty wild when you consider just last week, U.S. Customs had a pre-clearance sort of, announced that they're putting that in there. They seem to be banking on it. Business community seems to love it, which may not necessarily be the NDP community as well, clearly here. But it is remarkable because so much of Ports Toronto, Toronto Board of Trade, they all talk about Billy Bishop Airport and its importance to our economy. But the mayor coming out and being so opposed, or appearing to be so opposed.
So 2 million people a year are using it. It's a significant part of our transportation hubs now in this city. And I come back to it. It is a direct confrontation and collision between respective interests. And you've seen the downtown lobby against Billy Bishop, against the expansion, against the potential use of jets should there be an expanded runway. And this fight has been burbling. The mayor's relative quiet on it. I mean, this is a staff report at the executive committee. I really think this is using the machinery of government to make life difficult for the city. She's not coming out and saying, I'm going to shoot this thing down, but she's doing everything she can to make it difficult for this airport to really financially and operationally continue.
Watch that space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, CTV's political commentator, but our friend, Scott Reid, thanks so much for joining us.
Have a great day, guys.
Friends with commentators for sure.
Yeah,
No, it happens occasionally.
Thanks so much.